we are welcoming our vice chair, team member, champion, all the things. I could go on and on about Miss Karina. We're in good hands with Karina and Dr. Michael.
Thank you, Velshana. I also want to thank you, Nancy and Kimberly, for that discussion and your reflections. I look up to you both as mentors and inspirations and icons in my life, and to hear such honest reflections and genuine and authentic reflections. You guys still continue to inspire me every time you speak, and I get to spend time with you. So just want to say thank you so much for that. And also, thank you, Velshana, for the opportunity for Nancy and I to talk in this way. If you aren't aware, we have some podcast episodes out. We can put those in the chat later. And those were always such a gift and an opportunity for me to learn directly from Nancy, Dr. Michael. And now we have the opportunity to kind of do it live, a live podcast session with everyone here. So this session is all about our role and responsibility, but I want to start by grounding us by reading a line from our purpose statement, which says this: as we each get better at caring for human nervous systems, our communities will experience healing. Self-healing communities empowers members and organizations with the knowledge and skills to care for one another in ways that align with the brain and the body's needs. A community is self-healing when members interact in this way, are highly reflective, and commit to continuous improvement. So, Nancy, as we think about the title of the session, we all have a role and responsibility. And we think about this statement I just read from the purpose statement. What would you like us all to understand from a neuroscience perspective?
Yeah. So many things. So in the context of roles and responsibilities, I would just kind of want to revisit the story that Kimberly told in the last segment, just about when the health system went in to partner with one of the local schools, and the health system wanted to come in and do a thing like to the school and to the people and the families were like, no, we need to do this, or we want to do this, or just the critical nature, because it's a shift in framework from thinking about coming in and doing a thing, and this thing that we do will solve a problem, to collaborating with people to build the skills so that the solution becomes self-sustaining, community sustaining, right? That the solutions to these things emerge in and through the ways that we live, right? The problems emerge in and through the ways that we live. And from a neuroscience perspective, then I think one of the most critical components of it is that it sounds absolutely bananas, but the idea that the human nervous system actually has expectations of like the world and people around it, right? That whether you're 1 or 15 or 35 or 87, right? That the word is called, like, so expectation becomes expectancy, so that my nervous system has an expectancy or expects to be in relationship with the world around me. That seems reasonable, but it's a very specific kind of expectancy, such that my human nervous system expects to be able to find safety in proximity to the people around me, right? That my balanced function, my ability to like regulate my stress, all of these things, right? All of those behaviors that we express emerge from like the micro construction of the brain and the spinal cord, and how the brain and the spinal cord talks to the body. And that all of that physiology and biochemistry expects to spend, like, health emerges when all of that physiology and biochemistry is in balance, is in kind of synchrony with the different systems, across the different systems. And the expectancy then of the human nervous system is that I find that balance or reinstate that balance through my relationships with the people around me.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
That's all I got.
Got it. And I learned about species expectance experiences from you, and that completely shifted everything for me. Even just, we talk about this of going to the grocery store, of like talking to the grocery store worker and being intentional and asking, how are you doing? I was on the bus the other day. I had a really long day at work, and the bus driver, it was packed too. So I was standing next to the bus driver. Actually, it was so packed on the bus. And he started to chat with me. And I was like, I really don't want to chat right now. But I thought about this like species expected experiences. I was like, no, actually, both of our nervous systems need to connect. There's a reason why he's talking to me. There's a reason why he wants to like just ask me about my day, whatnot, tell me, kind of complain to me. And I was responsive, and I was like, I did it with intentionality, with this mindset of like, oh wait, no, our nervous system needs this right now. I need it, even though I've had a long day, even though I kind of just want to shut down, put my headphones on. Like, this is good for me. And so I think knowing about species expectance experiences is so critical, because it allows us to live with, yeah, more intentionality in all the encounters, but then it helps us make sense of broader issues. Like things are going wrong, and it's because people are unwell, because their experiences are not being met right now. So thank you for that, and thank you for your teachings and how that's impacted me. In just a bit at 12:20, we're going to hear from one of our Near P science interns, Julia Ray, about how we intentionally build a self-healing community's culture. But before we get into that conversation later, what is one of the first things you think we can do to start being a little bit more intentional about living into the roles and responsibilities that we kind of have to each other?
And I don't mean to be redundant to anything that I said earlier, but I think it really is kind of the idea of internal awareness, right? The curiosity of self, just attending to self, because it's really, really easy to think we're being one way when we're really being another way, right? So there are lots of beautiful parts of the brain and the nervous system. There's one part, so the brain, if you like remove the skull, you're going to get some wrinkly, spaghetti looking outside stuff. Right? The front of the brain is the frontal cortex, and then we have like this weird loopy thing on the side that's also kind of spaghetti looking, kind of in the middle of this ear one, is a thing called the insula. And the insula is particularly in this what can emerge as a disconnect between how we think we are and how we actually are. The insula is a part of the brain that basically learns through experience, over time through experience. The insula learns how to like turn the volume up or down between my body and my thoughts. So you can imagine in an environment in which there might be a lot of stress, there might be these pressures, or like all of this external focus, all this, right? Like high achievement, right? Like so this is not about a particular adversity, but this is about where our attention is placed and how our brains develop in the context of where our attention is placed. If our attention, for whatever various environmental reason, is continually drawn outside of ourselves into the environment, the insula learns to quiet, to not attend, right? Like we're attending out here, we're not attending in here. And what we think, right, the words that we come up with are going to be the words that we come up with based on the context and what we've learned in the past. So many of us, many of our brains, many of our nervous systems adapt to attend to these things that are not self. That we adapt to attend to these outside world things, and we don't spend the attention kind of attuning. I feel this way in this space. I'm curious why that might be, right? We're attending out here. We might have noticed something in here at one point, but we don't have the time. We don't have the ability. We don't have the, we got to meet a deadline. We got to run from a bear. We got to, whatever it is. So the insula learns to turn down all this body stuff. Body still does body, right? We still breathe. We still digest. We still have hormones. Right? but we're not aware of it. Like that's the conduit of body into big brain. Um, so a little bit deeper on the why it becomes important to right, attend to self, man, because we can inadvertently do a tremendous amount of harm, even
Yes.
though we're absolutely trying the best that we know how to do in this disconnect and mismatch.
Wow. Thank you for that. Oh my gosh. And also the lesson on the insula, I did not know about that. So thank you.
Sure.
Wow, 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 wow. And it's just making me think about the importance of relationships and helping keeping us accountable for that inward reflection. I'm thinking specifically of Valshana and how for me, she's needed to keep me accountable and say, Karina, you're dissociating a little bit from your experiences. You're dissociating from seeing yourself in this, in that, in this work that we're doing. And so, and that has been a huge wake up call for me to turn inward and think about, oh, wait, how, like, what am I trying to neglect right now? Or what am I trying to push away from myself? Um, and so yeah, just making me think of being really grateful for the relationships that have held me accountable for that inward reflection. And I guess that's the movement in general is like trying to help us, yeah, be reflective. Yeah. So.
And that's, I think, back to one of the things that Kimberly said early on again, right? That like in a world in which we've been trained to care for others,
Yes.
that does not actually facilitate introspection. That does not facilitate the right, like to be cared for. What is it like? What does it actually take to have a friend who is good enough, trusted enough, safe enough, that knows you well enough to be able to say, excuse me, you
Mm,
seem like you're dissociating, or you seem like you're intellectualizing, or you seem like, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like all of the necessary vulnerabilities, right? Like we don't, we typically don't not only not allow those culturally, but we like punish those in 2025 on the vast internet. Holy cow, right?
Yeah.
We punish that behavior. And so we're all walking around, we're all very, very trained. So this is
Yes.
not anybody's fault,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yes.
we're all walking around very trained in a nervous system that will adapt
Yeah.
to the world in which we find ourselves. So again, this is not an overnight fix. This is not a 45-minute compliance training. This is a movement and it is a journey and we are working for generational change.
Amen. And it's a culture shift. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because that is the only way we get generational change is with
Yes.
a culture shift.
So good.
Yeah.
Oh, so, so good. Wow, just taking a breath in of all of that. I hope everyone who's listening to this too is also we're all taking a collective breath as we let that sink in. Ooh, okay. So we did a podcast episode transitioning a little bit, but still on par with this conversation. We did a little podcast on general community capacity. Can you just like talk to everyone a little bit about that and how this conversation fits in with building general community capacity?
Yeah. Yeah. So the way that I like to think about general, oh, and I'm even wearing, look, I didn't even think about this, but I'm wearing this perfect sweater. The way that I like to think about general community capacity is like the tightness of the weave, like the community fabric, like how tightly is that community fabric knitted together. So I happen to have a very loose, like you can see the big holes in it. And Velshana like crochets and stuff, right? You know what I mean? So like there's Afghans can have those big giant holes and like, and then we can get sweater, like this is a different kind of weave of a sweater where like it's real tight knit. And that's kind of like community capacity, right? The greater the community capacity, it's like the tighter the weave. And so if you can imagine, you've got a handful of pebbles and rocks and sand, and that's just all of the stuff that life is inevitably going to throw at you, right? You got big rocks that are super heavy. You got pebbles that like are like paper cuts. You got sand that seems innocuous. Maybe that's like the internet these days. Nothing by itself is harmful. It's just the way that things are, right? But depending on the capacity, right? You could have a lot of general community capacity. You could have a community that has a really tight knit so that when you drop all that weight of life onto that knit, the community, the capacity of the community, the connection, the relationality of the community is so tight that nothing falls through. Nobody breaks, nobody falls, right? And then as capacity starts to, right, like when there's been a death of a family member, right, we're pulling a thread out, probably more than a thread, right? When there's bullying at school, we pull a thread out. When there's divorce in a home, we pull a thread out. When we're young and our parents are just fighting, we can pull a thread out, right? Like these, right? Somebody's mean at school. My nervous system is expectant of safety in relationship, that my nervous system expects to be seen by other nervous systems. So even this like innocuous distraction, right? That's that sand, can eventually add up to do some thread pulling, right? So in communities with low general capacity, it's like the really loose Afghan, where you like drop that handful of stuff and we just fall through, right? If you drop an egg, it'll break. As we do this work of self, as we kind of wrestle with all of the, right? Like nobody came from a perfect environment. Everybody's got stuff. So, right, like the work, it takes a tremendous amount of courage to
Yeah.
be able to like say like, yes, those were my experiences, and where can I find the strength? I have to attend to myself to be able to contribute to this general community capacity. Because if I am not looking, right, like if my gaze is inward and shame and distraction, there, how can I ever look up to take part in the solution? So general community capacity then very, very, very simply put is like what, how much bounce is in a community, right? Like how much force or push or whatever, how much can that community weather and bounce back, or weather before it breaks? The greater the community capacity, the more bounce there is in a community. The lesser the community capacity, the more brittle that network becomes, and the easier it is to break.
That's so good. That's so good. And it's making me think when you talked about the egg, dropping the egg in, and with if you have to have both a tight knit, you need to have all those pieces crocheted so tightly together, but it needs to be flexible. Like you said, with the
Yeah.
bounce, has to be able to catch it. Like it
Yeah.
has to be soft.
Yeah.
And to think about that in relationship to this whole conversation we're having about our role, our individual role and responsibility, and how we need to have that softness, that flexibility, that within ourselves. Like we need to feel that sense of bounce within ourselves so that we can contribute that when our greater community has to each contribute ourselves to holding that bounce with what's going on. And so just thinking about, oh wow, we need to offer gentleness, but we also need to receive gentleness. And so thank you for that image. That was, yeah, really, really helpful for me. So as we close up our time together, I'm just gonna ask if there are any final thoughts that you have on this. We have about 5 more minutes of this. And so just any final reflections or thoughts I would love you to share.
On general community
Yeah.
capacity, or okay. Yeah, I mean, right. I think just to kind of pull a thread through the session so far, that general community capacity requires individual participation, right? Like, yes, absolutely. Systems are important. I'm not saying that systems aren't important. I'm not saying that schools aren't important. Healthcare is important. All of these big system things absolutely lend to and participate in adding bounce in a community setting. But again, I think many of us have become trained to the idea that it is then their job to fix the problem,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That it not like the school is responsible, the doctor is responsible, the bus driver is responsible, right? Like, and that, right, until we are able to reclaim our own agency as a necessary component of a solution, right, we will not get there, right? Like things will get worse unless we
Yeah.
take an active part in the solution, because the solution, the bounce emerges, health emerges, safety emerges through our honest relationality.
That's a powerful way to end.
There you go. All right.
Right there, mic drop. Mic drop. Oh, so
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Michael. Oh my gosh, this was a gift to me. And I know from all the comments and the claps and the hearts, and Bahati even getting on the video to clap, I know it was rich for everyone here. So wow. Wow. I can't wait to re-listen to that since it's recorded. Oh my gosh.